Welcome to the Future Generations Podcast, providing you with the world-changing content necessary to inspire you, your family, and our planet to a life of optimal health potential. We'll help you make the choices that powerfully influence the lives you bring into this world. It's time to strengthen our resolve to do better now and for our future generations with your host, Dr. Stanton Hom.
Welcome to another solo cast, guys. This is Dr. Stanton Hom, and I am so excited to talk to you guys about an amazing lawsuit. We are hearing from and seeing and witnessing so many amazing attorneys pop up over the last 3 years. I believe it is a legal front, the legal front, and the media front. This is something that I've said for many, many years, especially since 2015 or so in California, watching the media, alternative media, become more front and center in this movement for health freedom, especially for our kids, and then also watching the legal front, right? Watching the legal front come forward for our children in a lot of cases, and in the last 3 years, we've seen this legal battle from the many attorneys that have taken their expertise into the courts and have been able to bridge political parties, have been able to basically sit back and think about, are we going to be focused more on principles and parties? Or are we going to be more focused on the country, right? And in the end, we've seen a lot of these court cases succeed, and we've seen a lot of these court cases fail, right? I'm excited to talk to you guys about standfirmnow.org. This is at the helm of Dr. Christiane Northrup. Jeff Weitzman is involved, and attorney Shawn Rice. And this is particularly involving medical expertise or medical professionals. And this could be of multiple types, right? This could be of multiple types in a sense that if you are a chiropractor, if you're a naturopath, if you're a acupuncturist, if you are a medical doctor, lab technician, registered nurse, nurse practitioners, respiratory technicians, mammographers, birth coaches, scientists, statisticians, embalmers, morticians, dentists, massage therapists, you name it. If you are in the service of humanity in the healthcare for them, this involves you, because you know, and I know that for many, many years, for me at least, I have heard behind my four walls, behind closed doors, the conversations that mothers could never have with their own pediatricians without some sort of demonization, without some sort of marginalization, without outright dismissing people from their practice because they've talked about potential adverse reactions from childhood shots, right? And we've heard that en masse over the last 3 years. Not only, I would say somewhat less in my practice, because people have told me, you know, if it wasn't for you, I would have got it. But the people that have gotten it have had a fallout physiologically, have had a fallout from adverse reactions, which I have said for many years now. I hate the fact that I say this, years, because this has been so ongoing, and we got to bring these crooks to not just to trial, but to justice. But I've said for many years that these are not adverse reactions. These are intended consequences, right? And so if people are dying from this, and they are, right? If you look at the VAERS data alone, which we know is 10 to 1%, 1 to 10% of the reported cases of adverse reactions, and you see that hockey stick elevation of deaths reported, we know that you could multiply that potentially by 100, and we have millions of people who have died that have been reported about this. And if that is true, and if it is an intended consequence, which is a philosophical foundation that I have, that it is impossible at this stage to believe that the powers that be, but even the people who have limited liability, right? The politicians, the doctors, the hospital administrators, the insurance companies, the level of people who have been granted immunity to some degree for forwarding a narrative that this thing is safe and effective, and there's a fallout where people have died, that they are participating willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously, in a form of homicide, in a form of genocide that has to be, at the very least, heard. I have heard many strategies on court cases. I have not heard one that is so broad as this, where they are including affidavits, signed affidavits, notarized affidavits, along with video testimonial from people like us, that they will then bring to a judge that cannot be dismissed, because Attorney Shawn Rice is not a bar attorney. If you don't know much about bar, look up what BAR stands for and recognize who most of these attorneys potentially work for. And when you have an attorney in your court who actually, in many cases, has been behind many of the legal wins over the last 3 years, behind the curtain, without any sort of pomp and circumstance, without any credit going in his direction or in this direction, that you recognize that this may be a strategy, and it is a strategy that, one, has not been done yet, and two, may not have the outs that many of the other strategies have. And I'm going to invite you to my office, April 6th, 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Drop everything that you can, call out sick, whatever it is that you absolutely need to do to be there. We want as many as people as possible in person, signing these affidavits, potentially doing video testimonial if you have the capacity and the ability to do so. And in the end, we also just want to be in community with you. We want an hour with you. We want to see you face to face. We want to give you a hug, shake your hand, hear your story, but also recognize and help you recognize that we know what's happened over the last 3 years. We know what's happened when they started to reopen things. We know what happened when they started to allow people to go back to light, quote unquote, is they were able to control us again by putting you right back into the rat race, putting you right back into your toxic work environment, right back into the system that was overstressing, overpulling, overwhelming you. And then it kept us from being in the fight to the degree that we absolutely need to be in the fight. I'm inviting you to my office. It is a space in Escondido, downtown Escondido, 324 South Calmia Street. And it is an in-person, brick and mortar, holistic, prenatal and pediatric whole family chiropractic practice, because we have for many years been what we call safeguarding the way life has been brought onto the planet. We have been providing informed consent for families, especially mothers, over the last several years, but more so to dads who have been activated over the last 3 years to be a part of this conversation, but also be in person in the process of their family healing to a certain degree. And healing is not just the act of getting adjusted and living a better life. It is also changing your mindset, realizing your belief set, but building a community of aligned people in person that cannot be censored, that cannot be deleted, cannot be deplatformed. We want to see you. Jeff's going to be at my office. I'm going to be at my office. And we're going to be literally seeing patients during the time, but we want you to come by. We want you to sign this affidavit. We want you to potentially provide your own video testimonial. Why? Because we all know you have stories that need to be told, that are inarguable, that absolutely align with the affidavits that we are actually providing. And in the end, we want to take these criminals out. We want to end this genocide, and we want to end it in a way that isn't flamboyant, that isn't more than anything just saying, you human beings, especially these trustees, these people who have literally an oath not to harm, let alone destroy humanity, especially the people they are entrusted to serve, that in the end, I see this as a unique opportunity for justice. And in the end, there have been many beacons for truth over the last 3 years. But Dr. Christiane Northrup is not just one of the disinformation dozen. She's been part of the disinformation dozen. If it was, she's been standing for this truth for over 40 years in practice, in service to exactly the people that I have been in service to, safeguarding the way life is brought onto the planet. When I interviewed her, it was basically just the clearest day, exact perspective that I've had. People ask me, why have you stood up during this time? And I asked her the same thing, and she was just like, I'm doing exactly as I was doing many, many years ago. I've never changed. She's never changed, because her perspective has always been about how do we allow for the optimization of not just the gestational pregnancy process, but the birthing process, the postpartum process, women's health, but also how do we help these kids live more optimally. She's been doing that for 40 years. It's everyone else who has changed. She's not invited on Oprah, despite being on 10 times. She's not considered one of the 100 most trusted people in America anymore, right? Because everything in the narrative changed, but she hasn't. You all know that in your soul, you were called for something over the last 3 years. Maybe you've been in this movement like I have for over 15 years. Maybe you have been one of the leaders in this movement whose voices have been absolutely marginalized, demonized, vilified. And maybe you're that type of person that wishes that your voice could contribute to something that could bring these crooks to justice. I believe this to be one of the most important lawsuits that I'm grateful to not just be a part of, but to provide a physical space for community, for truth, and for our kids. April 6th, 3:30, 4:30, this Thursday coming up. Would love for you to be there. Would love to show you our space, because it is going to be a beacon for this county, as we have been, but it is going to be a beacon for this county, so that people remember that not only is it our birthright to heal, but it is our birthright to have truth, and it is our birthright to have community, in-person community, a brick and mortar business aligned with your values, standing for our future generations. Thursday, April 6th, 3:30, 4:30, in my office, 324 South Camilla. Would love to see you there. All healthcare providers. If you are questioning whether or not you are included, you are included. Come by, and we'd love to see you. And we can't wait.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Future Generations Podcast. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as more ways to inspire a brighter future for you and your family, visit us at thefuturegen.com. That's all available exclusively on thefuturegen.com.